Okay, so this week I want to talk about something that I think is just important as a practical bit of knowledge, and that is food as medicine. Now, before I get started with anything I'm going to say, I want to make this explicitly clear. I am not a registered dietitian, nor am I even a nutritionist. Everything I'm about to tell you is stuff that I've had to learn on my own when it comes to my own personal health and fitness journeys about food, the body, so on and so forth. I am not living your life, so the things that I do and the things that I eat don't have to be the things that you do and the things that you eat. What we're looking at here is application of knowledge, which means that if I tell you all these things, rather than trying to just memorize it and do exactly what I do, take the knowledge and apply it to yourself. Personalize it to yourself so that you can most effectively use this information. I will also say that if you are someone who has problems with food and problems with eating, in terms of like eating disorders or things like that, this video may be difficult for you, so like trigger warning, like calorie mentions and other things like that. But if you are genuinely interested in making sure that you are well nourished, that you are properly, feeding your body in a way that makes it feel good and actually meets its needs, I would recommend sticking around for this. This isn't a place where we're going to talk about you have to avoid these things, or you have to skip this, or you have to eat this much exactly. No. This is a place where we're going to talk about the value that every single part of food has, not only magically, but physically. So all that being said, where am I going with this? I'm going with this in basics of nutrition. Notice how when we're talking about the different parts of a meal in our Creating Meals Master Course, right, you'll see something like the vegetables, the meats, the starches. Those quite literally follow a similar vein of how the macronutrients are set up. The macronutrients are protein, carbs, and fat. On a plate, that meat, that's your protein and also a good amount of your fat. The starch, definitely going to be your carb and also a good amount of your fat. Likewise, the vegetables, those fall into carbs, and if you make them with butter or something, it's going to fall into fat. The reason each of these macronutrients are important is because they do radically different things in your body. So carbs is actually where you get the bulk of your energy. Unless you're someone who's like doing keto or something, carbs is where you get energy and you get the sugar for your blood and to feed the rest of your body. Things like fruits, things like corn and potatoes, things like bread and pasta, things like even vegetables, though those are mostly water. This is what gives you a lot of that energy. And when it's paired with fiber, like say, an apple has a lot of fiber, that apple will release the sugar a lot more slowly into your bloodstream than if you ate like a piece of cake. This is why you hear a lot of people harping on refined sugars. They're always like, refined sugar's bad, refined sugar's bad. It's not that refined sugar is necessarily like gonna hurt you really bad, but think about it, right? Because there's no, like if you just eat a spoonful of sugar, it's going to hit your bloodstream really fast and it's going to get used up really fast. So that's what causes those like spikes and crashes in blood sugar that make you super like jittery and then make you crash worse off than you were before. When you eat something instead like an apple or something that has fiber in it, your body has to like play with it, fight through the fiber because it can't digest fiber, and work to pull that sugar out of it, which means it's going to be a lot slowly released into your bloodstream, and it's going to prevent that spike and crash that none of us like. And now obviously some starches are going to be more nutritionally impactful than others. So for instance, rice doesn't have a very high nutritional value, I guess. There's not a lot going for it outside the starch itself, outside of those carbs. But if you get something like buckwheat, I love buckwheat, okay? Buckwheat is so good, like, especially when you make that porridge with the onions and the mushrooms and the white wine. Don't talk to me. It's amazing. But buckwheat also has in it iron, calcium, phosphorus, fluorine, molybdenum, cobalt, B vitamins, folic acid, vitamins P, P, and E. And it cooks pretty similarly to rice, you know? It's absolutely like choices like that, right? Like choices of buckwheat versus rice versus potato versus corn versus pasta that are going to make a difference. They are going to change what nutritional content you're getting. And if you're only eating things that don't have a high nutritional value, you're actually going to continue to feel hungry because your body's getting all of this energy, but none of the other things that it critically needs to operate, to keep your skin, from cracking and peeling, to keep your muscles able to contract, to keep your blood levels high and also able to deliver oxygen. Food isn't just medicine. Food isn't a joke. Food is quite literally how you stay alive. You need it. On the other hand, protein is quite literally the building block of your body's muscle. So if you don't work out very often and you aren't regularly tearing muscle, you're not going to need to eat that much protein, right? Because you just don't need to eat that much. But for someone like me, I do regularly work out, which means, I'm regularly sore. I am regularly trying to actually build muscle and build strength. That means that whenever I'm sore and my muscles have those little micro tears in them because of strenuous work, I need to eat a lot more protein so my body has something to pack into that and, fill it up, build it. Lastly is fat, and I cannot stand all of the fear-mongering around fat. Fat is very good for you. You need fat. What it does is it lubricates your organs. For me, I actually have an eye condition where my eyes get really, really dry. If I don't eat enough fat, it is like blinking over sandpaper. It's terrible. Also, it regulates your hunger and satiety hormones. You do have two hormones, leptin and ghrelin, that signal to your body either that it is hungry and it needs food, or that it is full, it does not need any more. Fat, being quite literally the most calorie dense of anything on this list of, macronutrients, it will fill you up quickly and it will give your body a lot of juice to run on. For every 4 calories that 1 gram of carb or protein has, fat has 9. Naturally, this means you have to use a little bit less of it than the other macronutrients, but that doesn't mean that you skip it altogether either. There are plenty of fats that are really, really good for the body, and that includes things like butter, olive oil, any other kind of seed oil, peanut butter. These are good for you. They have nutrients, they have energy, they bring out the flavor of the food. They really heighten how much it satisfies you. Look me in my eye and tell me you've ever been satisfied by some low-fat meal. No. Not me, anyway. So naturally, when you're building a plate, you're looking at where you're getting those 3 things from, where you're getting your fat, your carb, and your protein. That's what dictates the kind of meat you use or meat substitute. That's what dictates what kind of starch you're using. Maybe you're using potatoes, pasta, maybe you're using rice. It also dictates where the fat is coming from. Are you making a pesto that's olive oil based? Are you frying something in butter? Are you just using a little bit of canola oil? Or even frying up something like bacon first and then cooking your meat in that leftover bacon fat. Once you get that idea of what you want on your plate down, you can talk about the next thing, which is micronutrients. This is where vegetables really matter because micronutrients are things like potassium, iron, calcium, all of those minerals that you need to actually function and not come to serious harm when your levels are low. True story, I had a friend who had food poisoning for a while and he couldn't keep food down, and because he wasn't getting things like potassium, his body quite literally stopped moving because things like potassium your body needs for muscle function, and he had to go to the hospital for that. It was very scary. It was not good. He felt like he couldn't even breathe. That's how important these kinds of minerals are to your body, right? Think about iron. Iron is the thing that makes your blood red. It's the thing that gets that oxygen able to travel, right? With the hemoglobin, the iron, all that. Iron is why your blood tastes like iron. Iron is what you need to keep blood levels up and healthy. That's why you'll notice a lot of anemic people are told to take iron supplements. Obviously, this means that you need some kind of vegetable or some kind of seasoning, because just like all these vegetables have all these different things in them, all these different minerals and stuff, so too do herbs and spices. Things like thyme, ginger, turmeric, they all have compounds, chemicals, and minerals that greatly benefit you just overall on an everyday basis. They are what we call nutrient-dense foods, in that you can eat like 5 pounds of broccoli, be very full, have a lot of minerals in there, and still be able to eat more later in the day because it's not very calorie dense. Like, it's not giving you a lot of energy. You're going to need to eat more later, even if you don't feel like you want to, because your stomach has stretched to accommodate 10 pounds of broccoli. Obviously, you know where I'm going with this now, because all these herbs and spices that you've been seeing me use in magic, right, in Dinner Made Magic and anywhere else, they play a big part also in how you feel physically, not just in what you're trying to accomplish magically, but how you operate your body. All those things like beans, like broccoli, like apples, like carrots, like onions and garlic, like basil and oregano and rosemary, they all have the things in them that are going to help you feel better. Food is the very first thing that you regularly consume. You're not regularly eating Ricola cough drops. You're not regularly eating any kind of antibiotics or medicine. You're eating food. And those foods all have their own ways of keeping you generally up to date, right? It's the difference between taking your car in for a massive repair to its engine and getting your car regularly checked for oil and tire pressure and all that. If you neglect putting oil in your car and taking care of it in that general maintenance, you're going to end up in the shop trying to get massive and expensive engine repairs. Same thing with your body. I'm not saying that food can magically cure things like chronic illness or anything like that, but what it can do is help you feel generally better than if you neglected it. And this is why I was saying in my Sage video how much it concerns me how a lot of foods that are already made don't really have anything going for them in that regard, right? They just, there's a lot of fat and a lot of sugar, which sure you need, but there's no like nuance to the thing itself. There's no spices, there's no herbs, there's no fiber a lot of times. There's very little that'll make you feel good, both physically as well as mentally, metaphysically, anything else. I am someone who, to make sure that I'm eating enough, has to track what I eat, because the things that I eat tend to be nutrient dense and also not very calorie dense. They're very filling, but if I'm to not waste away, I have to eat more still, which sometimes is a challenge when you're eating foods that have a lot of nutrients and that have a lot of fiber and other things like that. You get full very quickly and you don't want to eat more. That's why things also like fat and dressings are helpful, because they add those extra calories you need to get your full nutritional needs met. However, I can absolutely burn through a bag of Takis chips and then be hungry 2 hours later, while also feeling awful. Just because I have a lot of corn chips in my stomach and a lot of that spicy powder that my stomach just does not like to deal with. Not at all. And so, of course, while you're doing magic, right, to feel good, to get prosperity, to get all these things, the food itself is physically supporting you, giving you the energy that you need, giving you the, the clear mind, the function throughout the day, the sustained, consistent, upbeat moods and energy levels to accomplish all the things that you are trying to put out into the universe magically. You can't very well be prosperous and abundant if you are too tired to do the work that makes it happen. I mean, right? And when we think about folk magic, you can see where certain properties of things like onions, physically, carry over metaphysically. So onions and garlic, they both have exorcism and banishment as a big part of their magical qualities. And you can see why when you look at things that they physically help with. For instance, my mom always told me that if you had something like worms, like intestinal worms, yes, you eat like a whole bulb of garlic because it kills them all. You have just successfully banished a parasite physically out of your body with garlic. What can that garlic do to banish metaphysically for you? And obviously, I mean, like, especially if you're someone like me who has a very routine way of eating, you probably are not going out and buying a ton of different kinds of fruits and vegetables all the time. You're probably sticking to similar things that you know you can use, that you can, reliably feed to your family, that you know they're gonna like. And so sometimes it is hard to get that full nutritional profile, right? Those recommended amounts of like every single mineral that you need. But I mean, there are ways around that too. For me, the way around this looks like a couple supplements, maybe. The main one I use is actually this Mega Food vitamin, which is a food-based vitamin. It's got, like, everything you could possibly want in there. It's got all of these different vitamins in there, and as you can see, they're all based on certain types of food. It's easier for your body to digest if you use ones that are food-based. It's less likely your body's just gonna flush it all out. Another thing is that sometimes it's difficult to get the amount of protein I need because, again, I am someone who works out and needs a lot more protein than people who don't. And so, I mean, I just have a bag of grass-fed whey powder. I make literally what feels like having ice cream for breakfast sometimes, and that it's a banana and frozen fruit and some kind of like almond milk or soy milk or regular milk or whatever. And then I put a little bit of this in there, blend it up. It's nice and thick, it's cold, beautiful. I mean, imagine for breakfast a chocolate strawberry like ice cream. But all this is to say, okay, my point being is that if you can focus on bringing foods into your life, and I'm not talking like whole foods like friggin' kale and walnut salad, whatever. I'm talking like just basic things. Beans, tomatoes, eggs. If you can bring things like that into your diet versus, eating canned stuff or eating things that are just like cake and stuff all the time, you're gonna be feeling better. Obviously, you can have cake once in a while. I mean, I love a good brownie. I love pumpkin bread. I love all these other kinds of things. But I don't eat them 3 times a day, every single day. I have them on occasion when I'm feeling like having, a cupcake. I'll make a cupcake, and then there's only 6 of them, and they don't last infinitely, and then there you go. There's nothing wrong with eating any kind of food. It's just that you have to make sure that you're filling your gas tank with actual gas, not like water. So remember, as always, mundane over magical. When you are planning out what magical qualities you want to get out of your food, remember to think about how that food's going to make you feel physically and emotionally and mentally as well. Make sure that you are supporting your physical and your mundane so that you can better achieve your spiritual, your emotional, and everything else. Because you can't drive a car on E, and neither can you accomplish anything you want to accomplish when you are feeling so low and down and in the dumps on a daily, regular basis. With that said, I hope this kind of helps you reframe how you understand food, not only magically, but physically on your plate as well. And with that, stick around next week for another Creating Meals Mastercourse episode. I will see you later, and have a good rest of your week. By the way, if you want to see these videos 2 weeks earlier, consider subscribing to my Patreon, where you not only get all these videos, but also recipe cards, specific deity profiles, and lots of other interesting things to look at. Video tiers start at $10 a month, so definitely consider checking it out.